Well, thank y'all for coming today. Today's demo is on oil finishes. In particular, we're going to talk about the new range of hard wax oil finishes. These finishes are not quite as hard as a veneer, a varnish. Really close. This is an example of what we're looking at today. This is curly maple, and with the different oils on it, so you get an idea of what's available out there. So it's neat to see oils being treated this way. For a long time, they were the forgotten finish because everybody was just all on polyurethane this and polyurethane that, but nothing makes the wood sing, I think, as much as a nice oil finish. So what oil finishes are available to you? And basically, you've got some choices. You've got normal straight oil, like this boiled linseed oil here. You have got the new hard wax oil finishes. You've got the traditional armor seal finish. This is an oil, but it's also a urethane. So this does two things. It actually goes into the wood and enhances the beauty of the wood, but the urethane dries on top, so it's a surface one. So you actually have a barrier between the wood and the environment. So they all are very good. Tried and True was one of the original hard wax oils, and the two most popular right now are this one, Rubio Monocoat and Odie's. They're both very, very good. Of all these oils here, only Odie's is rated for inside and outside, and it's only the original Odie's. Odie's Dark is inside only. But this is one of the few that will do inside and outside, which is why it's going to go on the piece of redwood I'm going to show you in just a minute, because that's going to be a herb planter. This is very good. This is called Monocoat. Tells you in its name you only need one coat. Now, can you put on more than one? Oh, absolutely you can. Here's the deal about more coats of oil than one. It depends on the manufacturer and what they've done to the oils. If you have a normal oil like the boiled linseed, when this goes into the wood, it's going to harden. It's going to seal the wood. So if you put more boiled linseed, it can't get into the wood to harden, so it's just going to sit on the top and become a sticky, gooey mess. If you've ever put an oil finish on and wondered why it turned sticky, gooey when the first one went on so easy, it's why. The oil can't get into the wood. So it's just going to do a gooey number on the top of you. These oils have been designed to go on top of each other, so you won't get that. What they do with the waxes and things like that makes that available. This, you can put numerous coats on and you won't get a sticky, gooey mess. This is designed to handle that. So is this one. This one's not. So walnut oil, boiled linseed oil, tung oil, those are one and dones. And what you want to do with those is you want to flood the surface of the wood. So you put on as much oil as you think the wood will take. You look back in 5 minutes. If it looks dry, you put more oil on. You keep putting the oil on. And so one time you're going to look and the wood is still wet. Wipe it up really, really well. That's it. You're done. Your oil finish is done. It's very, very simple to do. So we're going to try a couple of these things, and you need to get some of these. These are white abrasive pads. Some people think it's got a very little abrasive. Some people it doesn't think it has any. I use them to apply waxes with, and I've never noticed any swirl marks on the wood. So I use these. I like these. Now, if I'm putting a second coat of normal wax on, I'm going to put it on with these. These will abrade the wood, and what this does is it scratches the surface, lets the new oil get into the wood and re-harden, and you're going to start building up a really, really satiny sheen. The other way to do this is you get a bunch of grits of sandpaper. You'll start at 240, and these are all different grits going all the way up to 2000. And what you want to do with these in a traditional sense, this is the original liquid oils. You'd put the first coat on, you'd just apply it normally. The second coat you'd put on at least a week later. and you'd use the next grit of sandpaper up to sand the oil into the wood, and then take on a clean rag and wipe everything down so you get every little trace of it off. A week later, you do the next layer, and a week later you do the next layer, working your way up, and you're going to get a hand-rubbed oil finish that you can lose yourself, but it's going to be so luxurious and satiny. But it takes a long time. And why do you need to wait a week? You need to let the oil harden. If you don't let it harden, you're wasting your time. That's why you always want to leave a week. You can also use one of these oil finishes as a base finish, say on a poly. Say you have this beautiful dining room table, and you know it's going to get a lot of abuse, but you want to put a poly on there. Well, the poly is not going to really show the beautiful grain of the wood like an oil can. So what you would do is you would put a oil finish on top, and you would use none of the waxes. The waxes won't work. It's got to be one of the big three: bull, linseed, tongue, or a walnut. You could probably get by with a Danish, but that's got some dryers in it and stuff. I know these waxes won't work because the poly won't stick to a wax surface. But what you do is you'd flood this on just like normal. Then you'd wait a month to give all the solvents time to get out. And after a month, you'd put on your poly normally, and you'll get the best of both worlds. But you really need to wait that time, because you don't want to trap those solvents underneath the film finish, because then they can't get out. The oil can never fully harden, and your finish on top is going to be soft. So 30 days, give it a month, and you're good to go. Okay, so how can we put this stuff on? Well, we can use brushes, we can use rags, and we could use these pads. And we're going to start off with the Odis. Now, you're supposed to stir all these things. Remember, we don't shake a finish, we stir a finish. When it's really thick like this, you can't really shake it anyway. But what we want is that combination right there, and just work it really good. And a lot of these finishes, a little bit goes a long way. So what I mean by that, we will take what's on here. And the nice thing I like about these oil wax finishes, you really don't need gloves. You can if you want to, but you really don't need them. And what we want to do is we want to work this into the wood and just rub it back and forth. That's why I like this white pad, because it does a great job. Pick up some more here. So with this stuff, a little bit goes a long way. Now what I'm putting this on is redwood, and this is very, very dry redwood, so it's going to try to suck this stuff up pretty quick. Now another product a lot of these manufacturers make these finishes is called a wood butter. And a wood butter is a little bit of oil but a lot of wax. And that's really designed to make the surface give it a little of a luster. Because one of the things we'll see is that oil finish is great. An oil finish with wax on top is really nice. It's one of the nicer types of finishes. That's why the hard wax finish got started. It's because the people a lot more smarter than I am thought, you know, if these oil finishes look better if we put a wax on them when the oil's dry, maybe we could just incorporate the oil and do some more stuff. Now, this was plain old redwood. So when you look at this along here, that's what you would see. Now, I sanded this to 1500 grit. Odis recommends, it's the only one that recommends you sand to over 1000 grit. This is what the redwood looked like normally. Okay, nothing spectacular. And here we find out that it's actually got some curl to it because it pops the curl. So if you can pop curl in a soft wood like redwood, then you're doing something. And then what we would do is we would let this dry, and of course we were going to buff it out. Now to buff it out, let me put a little bit more inside those circles and we'll call it a day here. Now, since this is going outside, should I put a finish on the underneath of this wood? And the answer is yes, you should. Anytime you're going to have a nice, beautiful piece of wood, like a dining room table, a big, flat surface, then yes, you should do both sides. If you're doing a cabinet that the inside is protected and you'll never see it, no, you really don't need it on the inside. But a big flat slab of wood, you always want to finish both sides, because as the finish dries, the finish is going to cause the wood fibers to absorb stuff, to stretch, to move, and you want it equal on both sides. And again, we'll also want to come in here, grab a little bit more. We'll do the edges. Now this, as you can see, we're doing some work. It's not bad. All we're doing is using this applicator pad. And with an Odie's and a lot of these others, the Rubio. First of all, don't crinkle this up there. This is oil, and as the oil dries, it's going to generate heat. So you always want to lay it flat and just let it dry normally. You always want to wipe the oil from your fingers, because as you touch out the wood, you'll be contaminating the surface. So here's this. Now what we normally do with this is we wait about 15 minutes. Then you're going to take another one of these pads, and all you're going to do is just brush it down. This is the buffing. Now this is not the final buffing. We're going to do that about an hour from now with a cloth rag. But all this is doing now is we've given the oil time to penetrate the wood. And if there was any high spots or stuff like that, or streaks, this part takes those out. So you want to do this. Doesn't take long. And that piece of wood, basically, that's the final finish. It's done. Now, I'll do, when I get home, I'll do all the way around it, but you get the idea. It's very easy. One of the nice parts about these, it's very easy to put on. It's very easy to repair. Say this was a little tabletop and I had next to an Adirondack chair outside, and somebody took a mixed drink, put it on here, and forgot about it. And I came out an hour later and there's this glass just dripping water all over here. I can tell you from experience with Odie's, when I pick the glass up and I wipe the water up, there is no mark on the wood. Some of the other oils I've used, I haven't been able to say that. But Odie's is one that I can tell you that it didn't leave a mark. I've had alcohol spilled on them, I've had wine spilled on them, and once you put them on and let them sit like you're supposed to, now you're not supposed to put anything on this 24 to 48 hours, and then just treat normal. So you just can't go right away. One of my favorite is this from walrus oil. Walrus oil, this is called furniture butter, and this is really a good finish. You saw it on one of these little tablets here. This does a very good job. All natural ingredients, and every time you buy one of their products, they plant a tree. So they're good people. Again, we want to stir. And this is a gel, so this stays in suspension pretty well. It's just always a good habit to get into anytime you open up a finish. Always stir it, never shake it. The only finish that you can shake is one on the can that says, shake well. Because this is going to all go into the wood. This is going to lay on top, go into it, but it's also going to lay on top. So you always want to do that. Why don't we want to shake? Air bubbles, especially this one. Anytime you have an oil and then a combination with some type of urethane or acrylic resin or alkali resin, oil bubbles will stay in the finish and they will look terrible. So you always want to stir these. And then once they're stirred, now let me show you how hard this is to apply. I'll just use this thing right here that I buffed on. We're going to use walnut for this. Walnut looks good, unpretentious. Take the furniture butter. We're done. Now I want to pass this around because I want you to see this. We're done. We don't touch this for 24 hours. Okay? At 24 hours, all this, everything we see on the top will be gone. It'll be absorbed into the wood. That's it. We're done. That's how easy that finish does. So after 24 hours, the only thing we have to do is take a cloth rag, buff it, and you'll find that the first buff you'll feel resistance. The second one, it'll be none. You're finished buffing. This is one of my favorite finishes, especially for darker woods. This really, really pops, makes that wood look good. And how easy is that? Let's go to our tried and true armor seal. This is that oil urethane combination. And this we're going to stir with the other side of the stick. Now this one, we're going to use a paintbrush. In particular, we're going to use the foam brush. So I've got this little piece of walnut right here. This one wants 3 coats. And since this is a combination of urethane resin and oil, what it wants us to do is when we put the first coat on, and we do the same with the second coat and the same with the third coat. Once we've got that on, we let it sit there for about a minute or so. We take a rag and we wipe it down really, really good because we want 3 thin coats. That's it. So this is an oil urethane resin. However, looking at this, I think that these hard wax resins make the walnut look better, make it look deeper, more luxurious. So I really, really like these new waxes, hard oil waxes. They're really easy to use and they do a great job. And again, we just leave this for 24 hours. This I usually leave for 24 hours. I do one of these coats every day. Gives all the solvents time to flash off. So anytime you're using a finish that you brush on, you really want to be thinking about, should I, once it's on, while it's still wet, you just might want to wipe it down with a cloth. And then you get a smoother surface and much easier to deal with. Okay, now I've got Spanish cedar. Spanish cedar is a great, great wood. Use it inside of humidors, but you can also use it for outside of stuff. If you're going to use it inside a humidor, you never, ever, ever put a finish on. If you use it outside, then you can put a finish on. So we've got boiled linseed here, but what I wanted to show you is this one. This one is also about walrus oil, but this is straight oil. Okay, and what this is going to do when we put it on, it's going to do a great job. We'll just put a little bit on there. Take one of these little pads. Now when you put oil finish like this on, normally when you put it on, it looks great because it's wet. And then it dries, and it's going to dull down, give you a matte sheen. Remember, the light we're seeing off this wood is being reflected by the grit that we sand it to. So if we sand it to 240 like this is, it shouldn't be as shiny as this one. Now, since this is a softer wood, the pores are bigger, this is going to also be a duller finish than normal. So a really dense wood, a hard wood, will really react well to oils. This is a much harder wood than the Spanish cedar or this. So this is naturally shinier. So you don't have to do a whole lot of much to make walnut or maple or something that shiny. A softer wood, cypress, redwood, Spanish cedar, western red cedar, any of those that are softer, basswood that people carve and stuff like that, you might have to have in addition to the finish, which is the wax. So this is what the furniture wax would look like. I could use Odie's butter, same thing. This is just a wax product that's designed to make a dull surface shinier. And this we could also use with a cloth. What I'm going to do here now, this is raw wood. This is wax with just a little bit of oil in there. So this is not the strongest finish in the world, but it's designed to hold up well, to look pretty, and as you put it in, and this sanded with anything, because normally if you put a finish on something that's not sanded, there's any tool marks are going to stand like a sore thumb. If you're looking for a finish for picture frames, here you go. This is great, and you can recharge this anytime you want. You don't see any of the blemishes on there because the wax helps cover it up. So if you've got another nice piece of wood here and you want to make it shinier, you just put some of this wax on. So for right now, got the oil on it. Half of this has got the wax, and you can pass that around and just see the difference the wax makes. Now we let that wax sit on there for a little bit till it dries, and then we buff it out. So basically, oils have really advanced within the last 5 or 10 years. I mean, it's been amazing the progress that's been made. And I would highly encourage y'all, if you wanted to try a different finish, one that pops the wood really easily, one that's very easy to repair. And when I say repair, what do I mean by that? Suppose we have a boo-boo. Suppose we have a child at home that takes a black magic marker and writes on this beautiful table. Is there any way we can get that black magic marker out of the finish? Yeah, we can sand the finish away. The finish has protected the wood as much as it can, but you're not going to get rid of the black magic marker unless you sand it away. So now I'm going to have an area of the table that's got to be sanded. You'll find out that if you've got a small area here that needs to be sanded, it's better to sand this big area here and blend everything in. The new ones, like the walrus oil, the Odie's, and the Rubio Monocoat, yeah, you can wear gloves, but the solvents are not nasty. You don't need to. They'll all tell you should wear gloves, but that's the lawyers in them. These really are very good and easy on your lungs, easier on your hands. This stuff, you'd want to wear gloves. Any of the others, you want to wear gloves. But these, the solvents are are very, very benign. They're good to you. Now, there's one thing that these finishes do that you've got to be aware of. Eventually, especially if you're using rags, and this really doesn't apply to sticks, but you're going to have oily rags. If you take these oily rags and crinkle them up and throw them in a trash can, you're going to start a fire. And it's going to be a spectacular fire. So don't do that. So what you want to do is you want to take them, pretend they're laundry, and you want to drape them over something. Side of a trash can, side of a bench, side of a drawer. You just want to drape them over something. And once you do that, let them dry normally. The next day you'll come in, they'll be like cardboard. When they're like cardboard, throw them away normally. The finish is already cured. And remember, they harden in wood. What is cloth? It's plant fiber, just like wood is. So they will harden in this. So they'll cardboard this up, and then when that happens, you're normal. You'll also have lots and lots of sanding. So when you've got lots and lots of sanding, please wear one of these, because these really lend themselves to hand sanding if you're using small ones. If you're using a power sander, just make sure you've got a good vacuum on it, but still, you're getting a lot of this dust everywhere, so it's best that between sandpaper grits, clean up your mess. Get everything up so you're just not making a thicker and thicker pile. It's easier to clean up smaller piles than it is when it's covering the whole table. And that way you'll get a nice surface. But remember, this stuff dries in the wood, so this is really good to use. See, we picked up a little dust just by doing that. And that's why these finishes are really neat to work with, because we've got a good product. It does a very good job. It protects the wood well. It can pop a grain. If it's too dull for you, get one of the waxes or butters, make with it, and you're good to go. So that's it. Any questions?